Hello explorers and welcome to another video. Today we are going to talk about Apple devices. And a little bit of a disclaimer, if you are not forced to use Apple devices in your daily work, then this video is not for you perhaps. If you're an Apple fanboy or really like the Apple ecosystem, then you don't like this video. It's as fair as that. And I'm not trying to shame anyone that likes any Apple devices and so on. It's just that I've been forced to maintain Apple devices as servers for a couple of years now, and I'm kind of fed up with it. But the solution to all problems Apple is throwing money at a problem. So we had a couple of build servers because we are building a lot of applications. We're building Android applications and iOS applications, so to different phones, and we need to have these build machines because there is so many of them. There are so many applications, so we really need to have an efficient way of building things. First, we started by buying a couple of Apple Mac M1 minis that we started building things on, and those were really good for the application. We got it up and running with Xcode and Android Studio and so on, and it worked fairly well, and we went through a couple of upgrade cycles using these machines, but the problem was that every update there was something going wrong. And there was seldom anything wrong with the Android applications. They just kept on upgrading and installing and working just fine. We could build right off the box with our Android ecosystem. That was never a problem. But because the Apple ecosystem is so intertwined, every upgrade, something broke in our build process. It could be something small that we could solve in a day or two. There could be something really large that took us weeks to figure out in order to just solve. But I knew that every time somebody said, okay, we need to upgrade the iOS system because there is a new release of the iOS iOS build system, then I got a headache because I needed to upgrade, and it always went wrong in some way. The last one was pretty much where we broke the camel's back because we upgraded to Sequoia, and I'm not sure what did go wrong there. Something is really broken with Sequoia, so running that on an Apple M1 on 256 gigabytes of disk space is pretty much impossible. It takes up 95% of the system. The system takes up 95% of the Mac, so you don't get any free space to actually do the builds on, which is not great. And either it's because of Apple Intelligence downloading a bunch of different models, I don't really know. It never stopped downloading. So it always said Apple Intelligence downloading, never stopped that. Another thing that we noticed was that there were some process running in the background that was linked to Apple TV. So when you are downloading all of these fancy graphics to show off different shows and so on Apple TV, that service was running for some reason, and it was taking up a lot of CPU, so it was really hard to even log into the machine and do stuff. So one theory was that some device in the nearby of this machine was an Apple TV, and they got connection and screwed up in some way, so it started to download a bunch of shows and so on, and that's why it took up all of the disk space. We don't really know, but we realized that we can't go on with this machine. It will not work for us. We need something. Every time where you start doing this multiple weeks, you realize that my time is worth more in your just personnel cost than buying new hardware. So even though this Mac Mini M4 that we bought is like $1,600, it's still cheap when you compare it to the cost of having me trying to troubleshoot these machines. So we have bought a couple of these M4, and it's my turn now to install and set them up and so on. So I'm gonna give you a first impression of this, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about the MacOS experience and all the problems I have running them as a server. But the talk about the new product is pretty much just an unboxing. I can't really say much about it, but talking about the Mac operating system, I have been struggling with for a long time, so that will be a little bit more in detail. So first off, when you get the box, it looks like this. It's well packaged, so nothing will break in it. And you see it's cardboard, and it's some kind of mechanism here where you can open it up like this, and it folds up like a flower. And I don't want to do that, so I drop it again. I don't want to do a Linus. So this is the package you get in that flower. And it pulls out in the bottom here, snugly fit. And then you have the Mac Mini on top. And then you have a power cord as well. That's what's in the box. You don't get anything else. If you wanted something else, pay more. Or we don't want to put anything into the landfill. That's the excuse, right? But yeah, if you want something, then you need to pay for it. So you get this small machine. It's like 5 centimeters this way, 51 millimeters, I think, and 122 millimeters this way, or 12 centimeters. So this is roughly the shape of this one, and it's very different from the old one. The old one was flatter and chunkier in all directions. So it's pretty much the same volume, it's just taller. And the odd part about this is that we had the old ones rack mounted, 2 in 1 rack on each U. And rack mounting this is pretty much impossible. At least in the same, you can't use the same rack mount, of course. You need to buy more stuff, of course. But this is also a little bit too chunky, so it's almost 1 U in size, or it's on the in millimeter in size to a 1 U. So if you want to rack mount this, you will need to use 1.25 U or even 2 U in order to get into a rack mount. And why would you need that if it's only 1 U tall? Well, they have done this very interesting choice of putting the power button on the bottom. So having a mechanism enabled to push that button is something that you need to add to your rack mount. And if you have the rack mounted like this in your rack and you want to push something back here, well, then you need to have some kind of arm pushing it, or you will need to have some electronics to back here to push it. So you can't really put anything below this one because then it will not fit there. So you need to have more space to rack mount this thing, even though it's the same volume as the old one, pretty much. Another thing is that on this you got the power cable, you got network, normal 2.5 I believe, HDMI, and then you get 5 USB-C. And I think this is malicious compliance on their part, because they didn't really want to have USB at all on there. And then when everyone is USB-A when it comes to different applications like keyboards and mice, they wanted to be different, so they put in 5 USB-Cs. So now I need to have a dongle. Apple loved their dongle, so now I have a dongle that I could go for the mouse or the keyboard. So I had to switch between them in order to get it to work at all, because some things you can't do with keyboard and some things you can't do with a mouse on these devices. Of course, you need to have both. And I don't use Bluetooth peripherals, and in order to not make this into an Apple TV again, I turned off Wi-Fi and Bluetooth in order to have it running without those and not connect to other devices. But of course, after an upgrade, they turned them on again, so I needed to turn them off again, which is a little bit annoying. Another thing with the macOS that I don't really like is that you get 1 screen resolution I think it's 1080p. If you want anything else, no, you're holding it wrong. You can't choose anything else. It's actually grayed out in the interface. You get one resolution and that's it. The screensaver I had a really hard time with a while. When you remote in, it turned on the screensaver and you could never turn it off. Which meant that the Mac was pretty much bricked until you restarted it because you couldn't get into the interface. And why would that be a big deal? Everything can be done from the console, right? No. If you do some operations in the console, it will pop up an authentication screen in the GUI that you need to go in there and put in your password or just accept in the GUI, because everything should be GUI based, of course. So, and sometimes when you log in via VNC, you don't even get the login prompt. You just get the background and you get this little icon saying administrator logging in. And then when you're trying to do that, there is nowhere to put in your password, so you can't go through there. You just get the blank screen pretty much. So restart the machine to get it up and running again. Another thing is that they hide some things behind very odd places, I believe. So they had some functionality where you can go past our server room or somewhere in the corridor somewhere, or be another guy visiting one of our co-locations with an iPhone, and then you can steer things on our Apple devices because you allow point and keyboard to be shared between the nearby devices, and that is hidden behind displays, advanced, and then you can find that option to turn that off. And sometimes you have this advanced option, so you can choose advanced settings, and then there is a bunch of these small rings with a question mark in that you can click on and get more information, of course. But sometimes they have a little ring with an eye that for me is saying I want more information, perhaps, or something like that. If you were thinking about it in Swedish, so if I had it set up in Swedish, which I don't, I'm running everything in English, but in that case you could think that this ring with an I would be inställningar, which is settings in Swedish. So that would make sense a little bit, because this I icon that you shows up sometimes is advanced settings for network and sharing and so on. So there is a bunch of these kind of inconsistencies that makes it really hard to find settings that you really need in order to turn off functionality that you don't need on a server running just to build applications. This was what I wanted to cover today. I hope that you liked this video. Give it a like, share it with your friends and colleagues. If you want to support the channel, there is donation links and affiliate links in the description down below. If you have any comments or suggestions, leave those in the comment section down below. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that, and I really hope to see you in the next video.